Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to my 2024 library tour. In this episode of my history collection, I'm going to be finishing off this newest bookcase I have in my bookcase collection. The books on the shelf are mixed. There's no sort of emergent organization or any pre-planned organization. However, I have read, I think, more of the books on this shelf than I did on the last one. So let's get going. First up is a work of American history, Indivisible, Daniel Webster and the Birth of American Nationalism by Joel Richard Paul, which I have not got to yet, but I hope to soon. Oh, this is not quite how I hoped it would. Next is The Shadow Emperor, a biography of Napoleon III by Alan Strauss Schoen. So, biography of Napoleon III, which I had a go at recently and bailed on. I did not particularly care for the writing of the book. This is Empire of Guns, The Violent Making of the Industrial Revolution by Priya Satya. Have not gotten around to it yet. This is Porcelain by Suzanne L. Marchand. This is a history of porcelain, which I picked up used in this naked hardcover. Next is The Fall of the Dynasties, The Collapse of the Old Order, 1905 to 1922 by Edmund Taylor. So this is a history of the collapse of the royal dynasties, primarily in Europe, but also I think the Chinese, the Qing dynasty as well. I've been wanting to read this for a while. I picked it up many years ago from a Friends at the Library book sale. Unfortunately, this book is also very damaged. Somebody took a razor or something to the pages. This is The Greeks and the Persians from the 6th to the 4th centuries by Herman Bingston. Picked this up from the Friends at the Library as well and have not gotten to it. American Demagogue, The Great Awakening and the Rise and Fall of Populism by J.D. Dickey. Have not gotten to this yet either. Princes of the Renaissance, The Hidden Power Behind an Artistic Revolution by Mary Hollingsworth. So this is a history of the Renaissance. I've been thinking about picking up Hollingsworth's most recent book, biography of Catherine de' Medici. So maybe I ought to check this out first. Although I did do an introduction read of the book on Catherine de' Medici and quite liked it. So now we finally get to a book that I have read on this shelf. This is Ravenna, Capital of Empire, Crucible of Europe by Judith Herron. So this is a history of the Italian city of Ravenna, which for a time was the capital of the Roman Empire before the western side of the empire's dissolution, and then became a contested city between the eastern side of the Roman Empire and the various Germanic peoples who were invading Italy at the time. And that's quite good. It took me a Bell redemption to read this book. It does start off fairly dense, but once I got into it, I quite enjoyed it. I also rather enjoyed this next book, Fifth Son, A New History of the Aztecs by Camilla Townsend, which is a fairly good history of the Aztecs, not only the Aztecs as an empire, but also once they are conquered by the Spanish. Next is a big work of history. This is Australia, A New History of the Great Southern Land by Frank Welsh. I read this several years ago and quite liked it and wanted it in my collection because at the time I did not know of many histories of Australia. Next is Not 1 Inch, America, Russia, and the Making of Post-Cold War Stalemate by Emmy Sarratt. So this is a history of how NATO expanded eastwards after the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the fall of the various communist governments in Central and Eastern Europe, in contravention to the agreements made to Russia that NATO would not expand. And I build on it. It's a bit dense, and I might come back to it at some point. It was up for the Kundal History Prize in 2022. It was shortlisted. Returning to a book that I have not gotten to, this is New Lefts, The Making of a Radical Tradition by Terence Renaud. Oh, this is about radical youth movements. Which, actually, now that I think about it, I do have perhaps some books to make a section on if I want to. The next two books are big national histories. This is China, A History by John Key. Have not gotten to yet. And also by John Key, India, A History. Next is Oscar Wilde Prefigured, Queer Fashioning and British Caricature, 1750 to 1900 by Dominic Janes. Have not got to this yet. I picked it up last year from the University of Chicago press sale. So this next book is great. It is South to Freedom, Runaway Slaves to Mexico and the Road to the Civil War by Alice L. Baumgartner. Well, this is a fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. Another really good book is Strongmen, Mussolini to the Present by Ruth Ben-Ghiat. This is really good as well. It's harrowing, very, very harrowing, particularly the chapter on Gaddafi. Oh boy. Next is Nixonland, The Rise of a President and the Fracturing of America by Rick Perlstein. I think this is the second book in a trilogy that I've been thinking about picking up the rest of, but I've never gotten around to it, which is occasionally a feature. Oh, my book. And finally, the last book on this shelf and for this bookcase is The Proud Tower, A Portrait of the World Before the War, 1890 to 1914 by Barbara W. Tuchman. So this is a history of Europe before World War II's breakout, and it looks at the rise of anarchism and anarchistic terrorism, of British reform, particularly of the House of Lords, and how Gradually, over the course of the early 20th century, the House of Commons managed to prevent the House of Lords from kind of vetoing legislation. That the House of Lords could only really delay it, and a few other interesting things. It's been several years since I read it, but I really wanted it in my collection, and I picked it up a year or so ago. So that was the last shelf on this bookcase. Soon I will be taking on this wall shelf up here, and then next week this bookcase over here. So until I see you next time, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.